This week marks the 10th anniversary of Sunshine Week, which celebrates open government. But in Massachusetts, the relevant laws and their administration are a little more shady than some would like, which explains why the state's most powerful editorial pages joined forces this week in a rare show of unity, calling for more public access to supposedly public information. And the editorial page editors of the three newspapers join me now. Clegg of the Boston Globe. Hello, Ellen. How are you? Amy MacKinnon of the Patriot Ledger and Rachelle Cohen of the Boston Herald. Good to see you, Shelley. Thank you all. So let me start with you, Ellen, if I can. The lack of sunshine gave birth to this rather odd assemblage of editorial page editors. But what specifically triggered this coalition here?
Todd Wallach of the Globe had a story last week about the barriers to finding out public information. He focused on 5 cops who were caught driving drunk. He attempted to get their arrest records and was told no, that it was private. So that's part of a continuing series by Tom. He also found last year that the Secretary of State's office has enforced the open records law only 27% of the time. So the story appeared last Wednesday. Amy called me Wednesday morning.
Oh, so you initiated this
I
thing.
did.
Okay.
It was Amy's idea and said, hey.
So on that, the first example that Ellen talked about in Todd Wallach's piece,
Yes.
if any of the 4 of us were stopped for drunk driving, that information would be public, but those cops were not. Is that what triggered this whole thing?
Not so much that. When I read Todd's story at home before my coffee, I thought that I had it wrong. And then I read it again and again. I couldn't believe what I was reading, that arrests of people could be kept secret.
Wait, even of you and me?
Yes, according to Jeff Pyle.
Who's a big-time lawyer
who's a
and
big-time
public
media
records
lawyer.
thing.
So if the police choose to keep somebody's arrest secret, they can.
How weird was it working with the Globe in particular? Forget the Patriot Ledger from that's his out-of-body experience, right?
Forget the
You actually
Ledger.
even quoted the Globe in your editorial. Do you know
Which
that?
I likely might have done anyway, it being Sunshine Week this week.
Okay.
And we have a piece of legislation that we were all interested in at some level. But we like to acknowledge when we possibly can the reporting of the Globe when they've got something that we don't. And I do credit Amy for getting us all on the same page editorially.
But Shelley, let me stay with you for a second. And this really is preaching to the Boston Herald. The average person on the street cares about their taxes being low and the tea running on time. Why do they care about whether or not we find out who the 5 cops are who were allegedly driving drunk? Do they care?
It's our job to make them care. And this is part of the lecture I give to foreign leaders all the time and journalists from around the world. Transparency is the greatest weapon we have against political corruption. And we can't say that often enough or strongly enough.
Is the problem, Amy MacKinnon, is the problem the Secretary of State who administers the law, or is it the underlying law itself, or is it both?
It's both. And getting to your point, why the public should care, the Patriot Ledger last week tried to get the records from the MBTA. Our red line system for the Braintree line was shut down for 11 days in February due to the weather. So we tried to get the records. Why? What are the maintenance projects? What's the $1.8 billion in maintenance projects that are going unmet? And they wouldn't give us that information. And then we asked for the 3 years when trains have been late. And they said that will cost you $646 to get that information. And that's not right.
And that's part of the problem.
The public deserves to know.
My understanding is, Clegg, is that a couple of legislators have filed a bill to bring the cost down, number one, and to bring us in line with the vast majority of states, what is it, 46? And the feds, where if you don't get information you want and the government has wrongfully withheld it, if you sue them and win, we're one of the 4 states where you don't get attorney's fees, so it's almost unaffordable.
It's unaffordable. There was a case in 2010 where Commonwealth Magazine tried to get a list of city employees living in affordable housing. They said they could have the list, but it would cost $47,000.
$47,000.
Right.
So you all shook your heads. The two of you shook your heads when Amy said it's both. It's both Galvin, the Secretary of State, and it's the law itself. What's Galvin not doing that he should be doing, or is doing that he shouldn't be doing? Who wants to take that? Shelley?
All right. Part of the problem, as pointed out by Todd Wallach's reporting, is he is interpreting the law as it exists and creating a set of regulatory framework that is his invention. There are exemptions in the law. There's an exemption for personnel records. That's how these the police arrests are being kept behind.
He's suggesting they're personnel records
They
and
are
leaving it to the
personnel
discretion of
records.
the local police chiefs
Yes.
to decide whether or not to release this stuff, correct?
He has just driven a truck through an already bad law.
Isn't he flipping on the police thing? From what I understand, wasn't
Right.
he for release before he was against release? What
Was
happened?
it up until 2012?
Up
I
until
believe
2012,
it
yeah.
was.
What happened?
Well, up until 2012, the arrest records were public once there was an arrest and until the arraignment. And now that's all changed.
He'll be here tomorrow night. What's his explanation, Ellen Clegg, as to why he was for it before he was against it?
I don't know his explanation, actually.
So you should
he
tune in
didn't-
tomorrow night
I'll
then,
tune
probably.
in.
Okay, good.
I think it was no comment.
I think it might have been no comment. He moved the process back. There are no mugshots in the Corey database. This was a database created in the 1972.
Criminal records.
Criminal offender record
Record,
information, Corey. And it was designed to centralize a database for law enforcement.
You know what? Bill Galvin has said, the Secretary of State, he's going to put a ballot question together and have it before the voters in 2016. We haven't seen the content yet. A couple of legislators addressing some of the issues we talked a couple of minutes ago, adding to that list a public access information officer.
A ballot
chronicles that thing.
question is such a coward's way
He says the
out.
legislature won't deal with
That
this.
is the ultimate coward's way out.
Why is
The
it coward's way out?
Well, because that gives it to him both ways. It's sort of a way of saying, it's not my problem, let the voters decide. This is a complex set of issues.
Right.
And you think the legislature should deal with it?
Yes.
And
Okay,
I
but
spoke
speaking-
with the Senate President today,
Yeah,
and he
Stan
said,
Rosenberg.
yes, and he said that the legislature would likely take this up.
You know,
If
one
there
of the
is
things-
interest, and he disagreed with that.
But one thing they won't take up, and it doesn't sound like it's on the ballot question, which I can't get, the legislature in this state itself exempts itself
Right.
from public records laws. Is anybody planning on addressing that? Yes? No? Hello?
That's the central question.
In the judiciary.
And the
And the
judiciary,
judiciaries.
the
administrative end of
part
the
of
judiciary.
the judiciary is exempt.
Well, I mean, you all would agree you've gotten action. I mean, this odd grouping of people, you've gotten action pretty quickly. Both yes, no, yes.
Well, we've raised the heat level on it. We'll see whether we
Right.
get action
We
or
have
not.
attention, but we need to have action.
When are you going to make the next phone call to these two? Do you know when that's going to, what's the issue? Do you have any idea?
Well, right now I'm appealing to readers, to voters, to residents of Massachusetts to contact their papers, to write letters to the editor, and to let us know. And we will make those letters available to the legislature, to the governor, to the attorney general.
Fair enough. Ellen Clegg from the Boston Globe, great to see you. Thank you so
Good to
much.
see
Amy
you. Thank you.
MacKinnon, the
Thank you.
initiator from the Patriot Ledger, and Shelley Cohen from the Boston Herald.